Erik Turner and Kevin Massare, if that's how I pronounce it right, because I can't ever, from cover1.net. What's up, guys? Camp was sweet.
Yeah, man. So what day is this for you? How many days have you been to camp?
This is day number 2.
All right. And your thoughts, man? How'd it go?
Well, let me get the drywall of the picture. So there we go. Honestly, for me, day 2 was rad because I got to chill out.
All right.
And what I mean by that is day 1, my head's spinning. I'm trying to get content, somehow record something while taking notes. Am I taking too many notes? What's important here? What should I look for? I see notes on Tyrod Taylor today, and I'm like, I don't recall him really sucking, but if you're just watching one position, I guess, like,
right.
I personally don't know how all these experts have time to count all this and that. I think they pretty much just check a lot of information they see on Twitter and run with it. So,
Dave, what was the difference between the first day and second day? Did you have more of a plan this time?
Yeah. I got to settle down a little bit and learn how to pick my spots. I just don't want to go in there guns blazing and do whatever, because I feel like I've always kind of been like the black sheep in everything I do. So it's like, I just want to be polite and professional about it and just try to not be in the way. It's like you can be on the sidelines. It's cool. You can be on the track, but try to pay attention if a ball's going to come your way, you know, because the last thing I would want is like a player to get hurt because I'm in the way. So it's just like little things like that, and never overstepping your boundaries of taking photos or video is my number one priority, because it's about the team. And, we're there representing Grandstand Sports Network. And that's number one. So really, it's just, how do I gather as much content as I can, and knowing that it's from my own lens, so it is true what I'm seeing. Right. So that it's kind of nice to just have an opportunity to put out an objective narrative, honestly. So,
well, like you said, you can't.
The biggest difference is settling down.
Yeah, I mean, you can't cover it all. You said that. And so you came in with a little more focus, second day as media personnel. What did you come in today to focus in on? What were you paying attention to at practice today, the end of because today was I think the 5th practice, right, guys?
Yes.
Day 5. So what'd you focus in on? What were you looking at? What positions? What were you taking into account?
What I was honestly doing is just going group by group, just look at the quarterbacks. Not really even paying attention to numbers unless it was number 5,
Right.
Because I don't think Peterman looks bad. And I kind of like zoom in on that a little bit. But you're also talking to the guy, you're listening to the guy that thought that Jeff Toole's throwing a better ball than E.J. Manuel rookie year. And I still stand by that. I don't know if you went to camp, Erik, for that at all, but no. I swear Jeff Toole had way better touch, man. That Kansas City ruined his life in the Kansas City game. Take that as you will. But I just look at each position group and see who's working with who, and then try to remember, okay, what order are these guys going in, and trying to listen to what the coaches are saying, know. And what I'm noticing out there between the groups is all the coaches are encouraging. They're very strict. They're like, we're getting down to business. But I'm hearing, like, when a guy makes a good play, like, excitement, like, yeah, let's go. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm talking about. And you need that, like some guys will make some big catches today. Walter Powell on paper, not too sure what Walter Powell would bring, you know what I mean? Because it's a new coaching staff. You have suspension looming.
Yeah.
But I don't know about you, Kevin, but I feel like Walter Powell is just really showing up when he's made some good grabs.
Yeah, absolutely. They've used him in a lot of different formations. I've seen him anywhere from the starting ones doing bubble screens. I've seen him on first kick and punt returns. He's made it through another coaching staff change, and this unit likes him. I saw he got banged up today in practice. He did come back in from reports.
Yeah, he was fine. He made a play.
With the 4-game suspension, and I've said this way before even OTA started, or right when he got suspended, that it helps him. I think that the team's able to take another 4 weeks to think about it. They might only keep 5 receivers with this core without any moves being made. And Walt Powell is our 6th receiver, and you don't have to spend a roster spot on him. It's almost like a gain, in my opinion.
Right.
Until
Yeah, you're not wasting a spot. Yeah, everyone's like, oh, no, you're wasting a spot. No, you're not. You're not wasting a spot. You don't have to. You don't have to rush.
Salary.
Right. You don't have to rush a decision on Walter Powell. Now, you're talking about injuries. He did get a little banged up. He seemed to be fine. What were the updates, Kevin, on Dareus and Darby?
They were just normal run-of-the-mill little tiny injuries. They're both back practicing in full, and Dareus did address that in the media today.
I asked a question to Dareus today about what's he doing for alternate nutrition, or pretty much like, are you doing yoga? Like, what are you up to? And he says he's into riding a bike, and to me that's interesting. Well, what kind of bike? A Cannondale, and I got a Trek. Those are good bikes.
Oh, so he gave you the exact brand.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah, I swear to God. You can hear it at the end of the Periscope that we made. And, it's hilarious. But at the same time, I mean, this is interesting to me. And it seems like people are just fishing, which is okay. It's what they got to do.
Yeah.
People are still fishing for that. Dareus, do you have a chip on your shoulder? He's like this, like, no.
I make 100 million.
Where did that come from? Yeah.
Potential, we're gonna do good. Like
the third overall pick chip that you got picked 3rd overall and make 100 million now.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, come on, guys. I'll always back the dude up, and I understand, but I'm telling you, he looks straight. He looks real straight and focused, and he sounds passionate. And, I remember my day there Saturday, I heard Kyle Williams go, sell, like to come to the media scrum. And I don't think he heard him. He kept walking. Like he was far away, So, obviously those two have a relationship together. And he mentioned Kyle specifically during his presser after practice saying that, hey, I'm doing this for Kyle to come back. And, I got to do my part pretty much,
Right.
So – he seems really focused, and he says you don't care if it's 3-4, 4-3, whatever it is, as long as the game plan's there and everybody's doing their job. He doesn't care what it is; they'll be successful.
Right.
But I think he's focused. I really do.
What else did you see on that side of the ball on the defensive side? Because we'll talk about the offense. You sent me a couple messages during camp. You had some awesome notes, which I could barely read, but I made out some of them. One of them you had mentioned. One of your notes was that you saw Micah Hyde in the slot. Is that something that you're seeing a lot of at camp, or what you saw at least today?
I just think it checks off that box that we talked about. I mean, when you get Micah Hyde, we're talking versatility. It's an overused word in sports, but it's really true. And to me, I was stoked to have Aaron Williams, a former cornerback. I was stoked to have Corey Graham, a former cornerback. And I might be on an island, but I think those guys could be good depth or something for a team.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're still maybe capable, even at the safety spot, for even a Corey Graham. He ain't dumb. You know what I mean? He only played safety for 2 years. It's 2 years. So it's like I think Micah Hyde is pretty much the upgraded version of that. He's already done this so many times, and this is what we expect, and he's in there. Now, one thing I did notice is, I mean, obviously you're going to practice it anyways, was the safeties and the outside linebackers would switch up. So, like, they would just flip the play. But the corners would stay on the same side. Kevin, do you agree with that? I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe the corners did flip, but I also noticed, pretty much that's it. Like,
those were, I saw them flipping a little bit, actually. I saw Darby in the slot. I saw a little movement on the cornerback front. I did see linebacker, a lot of different schemes. I saw them in a 4-3 under at some points too. So yeah, they were doing different things schematically for sure. Like they would go into a 4-3 over to a 4-3 under on the next play. But yeah, the corners.
So you're talking, when you're saying flip, you're talking that the corners aren't just playing to one side. They are moving around, which is typical of more zone defenses, but there are going to be times where our corners are going to match up and move, with certain receivers and whatnot. So it sounds like they are kind of mixing it up a little bit.
You want to know something? I think maybe I'm Mr. Conspiracy Theory guy making something out of nothing here, but like, I think the practices are genius the way they're doing it. You got this DJ out there, right? They are so fast within like between periods.
Mm-hmm.
They're so fast between what they're doing. then all of a sudden we're doing special teams for like a few reps.
There's purpose in every movement.
Right out, right out the gate, right out the gate. Because I mean, think about it. If you shuffle everything up like that, it makes guys like me lost. Like, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're actually working out there, it's hard to keep track of what's going on. So I mean, it's like
it's also a it's like a multitasking thing. Yeah.
What's that? My head's down, and then I end up on the other side of the field. They're on the other side of the field. I don't even know. I'm like, oh shoot.
Well,
so it's like
it keeps the players on their toes. It keeps them obviously moving on to the next assignment. Almost like it's like a play in itself. You got that 6-second burst. You had to do your assignment, your responsibility, and then you have to go on to the next play, no matter what happened prior to that. So it should be, it could be one session of offense doing 7-on-7 versus air, but then guess what? Now we're going to go to special teams because that's what could happen in the game. That's good. That's the type of template that they should have. But Kevin, you kind of talked about it in the last pod. Is the tempo. The tempo to practice is noticeably different.
Yeah, absolutely. The tempos. They're moving around. It's normally I always witness breaks in between segments. The practices are shorter, but that's because the tempo's hot. They're moving around. First unit's getting in, second unit's getting in, third unit's sprinting in. It's great to see. So I am impressed so far with and like Dave alluded to from my initial point, reporters are trying to find something that they could report on that's going to get them views and clicks and interest stories. And right now they're not getting it. There's too much, I don't want to use the word positivity, but there's too much just run-of-the-mill standard practice, nothing really of note to note on, no major injuries. There's nothing that they can, point to that is going to get them those rage clicks. So
right.
They're reaching, they're pulling, they're trying to say, oh, that was a bad practice by Tyrod or what have you. Dave might be able to comment more on if it was a poor practice by the quarterback position.
On the defensive side still, though, with I got a chance to periscope Reggie Ragland and then over to Logan Thomas. And Reggie Ragland was really interesting to listen to. And I asked him pretty much conceptually, is this defense faster for you or is the other defense faster for you? And he actually had like a really good answer that I can't perfectly quote because I haven't listened back to it. But essentially that the other defense was faster for him because he already knew it.
Yeah, of course.
So
it's the same defense he played in at Alabama.
Since high school.
Yeah. So
right. So it almost seems like we have this interesting storyline here where Shaq Lawson, if you hear his interview that I got a photo of at the Scrum, if you check out, Numb Bills Fan Podcast on Instagram, just type in Numb Bills Fan or wherever. And I noticed that I listened to that interview again today, and Shaq Lawson's like, I don't know why they drafted me, essentially. He's like, I knew I didn't fit. Clearly, I was the best player on the board. And, and he was even asked pointedly, like, when Rex, did you think Rex thought he could, like, fit you in because he's mastermind? He's pretty much just like, exactly that. I'm the best player on the board. They took me. Mm-hmm. And it's like,
which is
it
true.
seems like Reggie Ragland is a guy that doesn't fit the defense now, and maybe Shaq Lawson fits the defense now. So it's like a weird thing, especially if dude is getting, he ain't out there with the first team. You got these other linebackers showing up, on a regular basis. So
yeah, I'll jump in a little on that note too, because look, he got hurt his rookie year. He's played 4-3 for 5 days. 5 training camp days. Look, it'll take all of 2 preseason games for him to all of a sudden get it. Next thing you know, he's in it strong. He might be playing Will. He might be shifting in at Mike. I don't know. But he's got
too early, man. It's too
he's
early.
Played it since high school. He was a 3-4 linebacker.
Yeah.
There's no way that he said he's never played 4-3 ever in any capacity. So there's no reason to take any notes out of this. Then look, he's playing with the second team to get as many installs, and he'll get a ton of training camp time.
That's the story of the day, man. It's nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, he'll get a ton of preseason time, and I think the next thing you know, him and Hodges will be moved up to the top unit. So
I don't think it's anything to worry about. I think he's a perfect player to have on the team. And I don't know what's up with his weight or not. You know what I mean? Like I don't know where he is, and that Dave, can have a factor too.
While you were at camp, the internet kind of blew up when it came to Ragland, basically saying he's not a fit. That they should look to trade him. already. And it's just one of those things. I think it's much too soon. Obviously, he didn't even play last year. Kevin alluded to it. He hasn't played in a 4-3. Of course, it's going to take him some time. Should he know the defense as far as like on paper? Yes, but it's different when you're out there because that's why he was so good in that Alabama defense because of his read and diagnose skills. So it's got to take time. I mean, whether he beats out Preston Brown or not, you don't trade away an asset.
No,
you don't. You just don't in the NFL. You're not going to get the value back.
Not at a depreciating amount. Yeah,
no.
Not at a depreciating. If it's appreciated, sure, but
you can't teach foresight. You can't teach instinct. You can't. You know what I mean? Like, this guy already gets it, man, because you know as well as I do, you can run a 4.8 or you can run a 4.2. If you're dumb as rocks and you can't do the simple shit, you're not going to succeed in the NFL. Let me bring up a name for you, Jarrell Worthy. I love when the Bills brought him in. Why? Because you see the high draft pick on the guy, and they're like, what can we do with him? Mm-hmm. And guess what? Through 2 coaching staffs, this kid – in 2 systems is making a name for himself, and he's consistent, right?
He's one of our best backup linemen,
A little bit, I think he even might be a little bit skinnier too now. He might have dropped a little bit, obviously. I could be wrong. He's listed here on the media guide at 300, 6'2". But it's like Reggie Ragland is too good of a, like, I don't care if we were a 4-3 already, and we picked up Ragland. I would be stoked because – you got to, as a coach, you need to tailor your system to this guy. What if this dude drops some weight? What if this guy gets back, gets into better shape, drops some weight, gets a little bit faster, and you couple that instinct in there? Are you looking at more like, I don't want to say this because it could be 2 different things, and Erik, you might puke in your mouth. Again, Carolina defense, I think of this guy named Luke Kuechly just cleaning everything up. That said, it's not Luke Kuechly at all. He's not a totally different player.
It's not.
And
it's
Preston Brown is so smart. I don't see him upseating Preston Brown, but damn, it's good depth. And if you want to have some rotation and put him in some situational things, it doesn't hurt to have him on the team.
Okay. No, look at this though, guys. All right. Can you see the screen here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's look at, and this is surface level analyzing. All right. And I'm just going to look at what each of those players, Preston Brown and Reggie Ragland, are surface level athletes-wise, all right, athletic-wise. So we're looking at Reggie Ragland, and this is courtesy of mockdraftable.com. 6'1", 247 pounds, 10-yard split of 1.65, a 40-yard dash of 4.72. All right, so now let's take a look at Preston Brown. Again, 2014, surface level analyzing, but 6'1", 251 pounds, 1.64 10-yard split, and 4.86 second 40-yard dash. So when people want to say that, Preston Brown is a fit for this defense because he has, maybe has better range and is better in coverage than Reggie Ragland. Actually, the numbers say that Reggie Ragland actually is a better athlete, and it's numbers. And that's not taking into account read and diagnosing and quick twitch and all that good stuff. Again, service level. But for someone to say that, Preston has the range to play this cover 3 defense and Reggie Ragland doesn't, I don't buy it. I don't buy it coverage-wise because – why, Kevin? Because cover 3 defense means there's 3 deep, and how many guys underneath? There's more guys underneath than in a cover 2 defense. So they have less area to cover. So I don't know where Reggie Ragland won't be able to cover in this defense argument comes from.
Yeah, and going off that thought too, if you look at some of those player comparisons, they both had a very similar player comparisons there. Also, it's just because Preston Brown's played in the 4-3 and has way more experience in it. When Reggie Ragland catches up, it's going to be like a really good benefit. Like, why would you let him go now and not develop him for what you drafted him for, to the ability to play the position and have that versatility? And he's going to be one of your key cogs in the linebacking core. That's not just, he was out all last year and would have played in the 3-4 anyways. Right. He's had 5 days of practice. He's going to get 4 full preseason games. He's going to play a lot of time. We all know that. And by the end of it, I really think by the end of it, he's going to somehow swap into your starting lineup somewhere.
Yeah. And look at the 2. You see the 2 top guys for Preston Brown for comps? Yep. Sam Barrington and A.J. Klein.
My boy Sam Barrington. I'm telling you, Sam Barrington's going to sneak on this roster. I'm telling you that.
Hey, guys, I wanted to piggyback on what you said about Ragland. And 2 things at Ragland. Preston Brown is in a contract year.
Yes.
So, and if middle linebackers are a dime a dozen, as they say, very replaceable, and guess what? Unless Preston Brown, coach's son, wants to play ball, which I am a huge Preston Brown fan, I always have been, I'll be honest, Ragland talked today. He talked about dropping back into coverage or whatever. Or, you know, somebody asked him, "Are you doing coverage?" He's like, "Well, of course I have to." Like, yeah, duh, it's football. You know, and long story short, one, Reggie Ragland is probably the succession plan. Two, that makes sense. And three, you already got him.
Yeah.
And most importantly, I look at it like, I could be nuts, but I think whenever we talk about linebackers not being able to cover, I don't really remember that many. I don't remember Preston Brown being that glaring of a dude who can't cover. I mean, that's what people like to say, but dude has some pass deflections. Dude has some interceptions. I mean, he's done some things. I don't think he's great, but I think he's fine. And I think Reggie Ragland, I think he would be fine too. It's just, you got to get these guys on the field, man. I mean, and not for nothing, this is all up to Coach McDermott. You know, and the only reason I comp Luke Kuechly and not even trying to comp him is when I think of a certain style of defense, the first thing I thought about McDermott is who's going to be him, because that guy's a game changer. That said, it's up to coaching. I'm sick of seeing coaches in the past try to take these square – again, I mention it all the time, a lot of new fans, but I have a big comparison here, which is I don't want to hear from Nathaniel Hackett year 2 – 6 games in to 8 games in that you decide to pop on tape about how CJ Spiller was used and discovered that he don't go between the tackles. And if you read a scouting report, you would know that. So, like, I don't understand how some coaches, they do what they want, and a lot of times it comes down to ego. I want to see Sean McDermott and these coaches finally just use these guys to their strengths across the board.
That's exactly it.
Basket, and it didn't happen.
That's what they get paid for. That's what they get paid for, to come in here and adjust.
What happens with those guys?
And that's why
you coaching them?
Yeah, and that's why I don't like. I try not to think in terms of who's our Luke Kuechly, who's our Thomas Davis. I try to think of terms. You know, can this guy play this role? Can Reggie Ragland or Preston Brown get to the middle zone in a cover 3? Can they get to a deep zone in cover 2? That's going to be a little more difficult. So I understand there is some range issues for both of them. And if you look at Pro Football Focus here on the screen, I mean, Preston Brown this last year in a 3-4 defense, so it's a little different. I mean, he did all right. He had 485 snaps in coverage. He allowed 42 catches, only 1 touchdown though, but 341 yards a yak. And if you look at the yak, I mean, that's some of the worst in the league. I mean, you see even Zach Brown's up there; he's 4th. Yeah. So what these teams were doing was throwing it short and having these linebackers having to chase those guys, running across the middle, running away from these guys. So, a lot of people, I don't know who said it in the media that, Preston Brown is actually decent cover. He's not bad, but you see what we're dealing with. We're dealing with this yak yardage. That's the stuff we need to limit.
Yeah, he's getting crushed on the yak.
Yes.
It seemed like a second half of the year thing, right? Didn't it seem like more like a second half year thing? Because all we heard about was Zach Brown cleaning up, and then Zach Brown and coverage became a liability.
He was all together. Zach Brown, don't even get me started on Zach Brown, just because he's gone, and he pisses me off, to be honest, because he's got all the talent in the world, and he just doesn't put it all together. He eventually gives up, and it showed in the second half of last season. But, I mean, Preston Brown, in 2014, now if you went back to 2014, which we're not looking at right now, but in 2014, he was solid in coverage. I mean, he wasn't that bad, but – in that Jim Schwartz defense, he's a good coach. Schwartz is a good coach, knew how to hide him, knew how to minimize those weaknesses. And even in that year, though, I mean, he still was exposed a decent amount. So
now,
go ahead.
And for the listeners, Jim Schwartz is a huge yeah. Okay. So in Jim Schwartz defense versus Sean McDermott's defense, yes, it's a 4-3. Now, what was Preston Brown's responsibilities? What's the difference between the two defenses here for Preston Brown coming up?
Well, first of all, the wide 9 that Schwartz employs, for run defense, everything gets funneled back inside. You have that guy out so wide at defensive end that everything gets funneled back into, Preston Brown played some Will and Sam that year, as you can see on the screen. So his range wasn't as important in Schwartz's scheme. Now, although McDermott does play somewhat wide 9, and I expect him to play a little more than he did last year because of Jerry Hughes and his inability to stop the run last year. Yeah, it's nothing new. I'm not saying it's anything new. So, but Preston Brown's range, if they're not in this wide 9, and Reggie Ragland for that matter, versus the run, it does concern me versus the run. Why? Because when you have a base 4-3 defense, your defensive ends are going to spill, which means they're going to crash down on the run and force the play to bounce wide. Then the next linebacker in line has to fill over the top. So if you're a Mike linebacker, if you're Reggie Ragland or Preston Brown, and you're having to spill and fill from Mike, sometimes these plays are going to make it towards outside the hash, out towards the sideline. The question is, do these guys have the range to fill over the top when these plays are spilled wide? That's where I'm worried. I'm not too worried about coverage-wise because coverage-wise, the defenses are very similar, especially when we talk about the corners that we have and how we're going to have and safeties we have, how we're going to have to overcome some of those deficiencies and their weaknesses. So I'm not too worried about that. So when it comes to range, guys, I'm more worried about the run game than I am in coverage.
Dude, you kind of made my Kuechly point, though, in a way, like to play devil's advocate on that. That's why I'm kind of going on both sides of these issues because I don't think Ragland's I don't want to give people the wrong impression how I came out a few minutes ago. I don't think Ragland should go anywhere, but playing devil's advocate here, if you look at Lorenzo Alexander, that guy's in a lot better shape than Reggie Ragland. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but I'm talking like it looks like body fat percentage.
Right.
I would bet you was a little bit less. Like Zoe's I know the whole 30 stuff he did, I actually talked to him today about that for a second. And it's like, I always wonder about that edge, when it comes to, when you think about the Luke Kuechly of Sean McDermott's defense, it's like, man, that guy's got to be able to get to the sidelines quick. It's like, remember how many tackles like Paul Postlesny would get because he would just be like a maniac everywhere, but it was never like really like tackles for loss.
7 yards behind the line of scrimmage already.
He still got there. Like
he still makes a ton of tackles that way where they're 7 yards downfield. He's getting blown off the ball.
How do you counter that as a coach? Like, what do you do then? If Preston Brown isn't that guy, and Reggie Ragland might not be that guy, but he's got a quicker step. I think what you're doing here is you're basing your defense on instinct.
Well, there's a difference between straight line 40 speed, which we were just analyzing, and difference between game speed. Game speed is not just how fast you are, but also how quickly you diagnose that play. So if Reggie Ragland, that's his bread and butter, and he's running a 4.72, 4.8, whatever, that's how you overcome that lack of deficiency in straight line speed. It's game speed. There's a big difference between.
And he has a lot of game speed, Reggie Ragland. And you're gonna here's what he's gonna be up against twos in game 1, game 2, game 3 of the preseason. He's gonna make a ton of plays, and he's gonna immediately against twos and back up offensive linemen trying to reach up to him. He's gonna immediately boost up the depth chart because he's gonna read and react. They're gonna see that immediately and realize he's figured it out within a couple preseason games.
I don't think it's gonna take him long. And honestly,
especially against the twos.
You can't ever have enough good players. I don't care what happens. These guys from Alabama, they just come from – Saban just gets to do whatever he wants. You know what I'm saying?
He makes his job easy. He's got some really good athletes. There's no doubt about that.
That's 100. And it's like I got high hopes for Ragland and I think people just got to breathe. Don't even be looking at I'll switch over to the offense side of the ball. Don't even be looking at and don't be counting quarterbacks reps. Guys, come on. There's so many damn things to look at here. Tyrod Taylor's a quarterback. Stop it.
Right.
Stop. Just stop. He's the quarterback. I don't want to hear from Brodak or whoever that he's sucking. It is what it is. It's practice. I'm personally not honed in on just the quarterback because I want to know, because I've always been a fan of, I don't need to just mention Trent Dilfer, okay? I can mention a lot of other quarterbacks that didn't have to do that much to get to the championship games.
Well, let's go to the offensive side, Dave, since you're kind of talking about. Let's go to the offensive side and what you saw today.
Let's be positive here.
What do you see? I know you mentioned something on the offensive side that you saw a lot of. You talked about the tempo all together in practice. But what did you see on the offensive side that you had mentioned to me when you were talking to me earlier today?
Hold on, man. Let me go through my notes. Just give me a sec. What I saw a lot of, and before I guess I'll go there, but there was something I wanted to do to remind me about the quarterbacks that I don't think anybody really reported on, but maybe me, is they're using a lot of motion, and I like that because Erik, don't shoot me, but I love motion in Madden, and I'm usually too lazy to use it if I can't read the corners or something, but it's just like they're trying to make it. What I like about them is it seems like they're trying to make it as easy as possible for the quarterback. Why not give him every tell you can? So put a guy in motion.
There you go.
And it's like, if you've ever managed people or had businesses or hired people or worked with people or been in a managerial position or worked for somebody you liked, when they encourage you and you give them a little bit more responsibility, they'll actually show up to do it. So, okay, well, listen to the quarterback a little bit more, and he's going to make an adjustment. That means you move. Next thing you know, a quarterback can see who's following him or not, and you could do whatever the hell you want from there.
Right, because motion identifies coverages. It helps you tell between man and zone. It helps you tell where the help's going to come from, whether it's single high safety, two high safeties. Motion is incredibly important, and in offenses like this where you have a heavy dose of West Coast principles, motion is even more important because you're going to have these short timing passes. You have to know what coverage you're seeing, what concept they're playing on defense so that you can get the ball out of your hands. Right, Kev?
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Like and motion was a key thing that they were practicing through the first couple of days of practice. It was really all they were focusing on practicing when I was there. So, yeah. I mean, you had pretty much exclusive motion drills. You had different types of motion. You had your running backs, your tight ends, your receivers in motion. You had bubble screen motion. There was a lot of things that they were running, and fully all of them focused on motion for at least 20 minutes of practice.
It's nuts.
Oops.
Go ahead.
You can go. You had something more important on this, right?
Because it's something that we touched upon at Cover One because, last year, Tyrod Taylor didn't have that much motion. He dropped back, I want to say it was 400 plus times last year. Let me see. Let me look it up. Yeah, I mean, he dropped back to pass a ton, and he only had just over 100 plays that he had motion. I mean, that doesn't help your quarterback. If you're only motioning every once in a while, I mean, look at the Pats. I mean, look at the Pats. Look at the Falcons. Play. Every single play there's motion. Yeah. It's incredibly important.
How open is it? Okay, like if people at home want to try this, go on your dumb Madden and put a guy into a drag. Like motion him and then put him into a drag. You're gonna and just wait for him to break away, wait for release, and it's like.
Okay, so we're looking at on the screen. You're looking at Pro Football Focus right now, and it looks like Tyrod dropped back 529 times. All right, and if you look at what we did as far as a breakdown last year on Cover One, he only had just over 100 plays where he actually used motion. So right. I mean, it's just that's not enough last year. And the last 3 games, I especially saw more motion. And look at Tyrod's numbers; those games they were pretty good. So definitely motion. I heard it from both of you guys. The fact that they're using a lot of motion, that is a plus for this offense, no doubt about it.
Fullback motion, man. You got fullback motion. Yeah. You have specific backup tight end motion. I mean, you have motion across the board. You have different plays going to design. They're not just to mess with the defense. They were actually play specific for their fullback, play specific for their setup, for their backup tight end and their backup running backs and their third receivers, all the way down the line to Walt Powell getting into motion and getting some plays that way.
Right. No, that's awesome.
Kevin, I'm gonna throw some shit on the wall, Kevin.
Okay.
If I was to call it early, which I think it's usually doesn't mean anything, it looks like the offense is ahead of the defense because it seems like Mike Tolbert's doing whatever he wants.
Yeah.
Swing passes, screens. It's really crazy. One thing I wanted to touch on real quick was before we take some questions and wrap up on this thing, is a compliment. which I can't find it in my notes exactly, but
Okay.
when they first went into situational drills in the red zone, 3 quarterbacks right off the bat, right after individual stuff, immediately they rush to some stuff, and they do 11 on 11, and Tyrod completes a touchdown to Sammy Watkins, leave on the left side. Yates ended up scoring a touchdown to Zay Jones on the right side, and then Nathan Peterman, I think, hit number 10, who I'm drawing
Philly
a blank.
Brown.
Philly Brown. So, I mean, come on, guys. That's 3 consecutive red zone passing touchdowns. Are people talking about that? Are they talking about
No, they're talking about a Tyrod Taylor
7
missed
on 7
throws.
touchdowns that Tyrod Taylor's hit? I mean, you got guys. A beautiful play I saw today was you had Thomas going to motion, and clearly the play was designed for him. I hit up Sal Capaccio after and Logan Thomas went in motion, got the ball over the middle, touchdown, boom, within the red zone. And I went to Sal Capaccio after, and I go, Sal, man, I go, they're definitely really trying to make Logan Thomas a part of this offense here. And Raw Dog O'Leary's been killing it. Like, his hands are nasty. He had a nice grab where he fell after. It would have been like a Calvin Johnson rule, no touchdown, but it was a touchdown. And Sale goes, yeah, Logan Thomas, he's like, I've counted at least 13 reps from him right now, and they still had probably another 10 plays to go. Nice. So I think he's here to stay. That's what I got out of it. Another quick note, I think the running backs look promising. I think Williams looks good.
Yeah.
I don't know what you think on that, Kevin, but there's damn swing passes galore. Clay, Sammy Watkins, everybody is moving everywhere. It's like I feel like this offense compared to Tyrod Taylor, what he had to work with last year. I understand the power run game. I believed in it. It worked. It put up a shitload of points. Both years I thought the offense was cool. But it's like these third down situations are going to be more manageable because I've never thought that Brady's necessarily a rocket scientist. But, long story short, I look at it like tailor to this guy's strengths and give him the best odds to manage a situation. And you can't beat it with this coaching staff because I feel like last year we're just crossing our fingers, hoping it goes well. Right. So what do you got, Erik?
All right, so we have some questions to kind of wrap up this podcast, and we're gonna a few questions. I'll start with you, Kevin, for the answers. All right.
Alrighty.
We have a question on the depth race at defensive line beyond the first 4 and even Worthy for that matter. What's the depth look like? How's that shaping out as far as the roster goes?
Yeah, I know we touched a tiny bit on it earlier in this cast, but Darrell Worthy to me is one of the best backups we have. He's been playing well. He's been firing off the ball. Adolphus Washington does look like he's more focused this year and should provide a good. He was the first person to step in for Dareus, his little tiny tweaked hamstring. Was the first person to step in and does look like he is in good playing standing with the coaching staff. It's a nice piece of depth to have behind your starters for sure, and you spent a 3rd round on him last year. I do think this defense could fit him even better than last year. So Ryan Davis and Max Vales are 2 other guys that I do like. Ryan Davis is humongous. He's in great shape. I was walking right next to him a couple of days ago, and I'd love to see what he has in preseason. I'm really looking forward to seeing Ryan Davis and seeing I do think he's a 4 or 5 sack backup defensive lineman. And that's not to mention some of the younger guys like Metz, who's an absolute monster, Marquavius Lewis and Eddie Yarbrough, who are also getting snaps with the 2s. There is going to be a final spot there that has been given between those 3 guys.
Okay. All right.
Davis seemed to be like when they brought him in, he kind of reminded me of Homie Nuts, like Zach Brown. Like a Jerry Hughes, like it didn't fit the system kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I think if you put him in the right spot,
yeah, absolutely.
He could do the simple thing, which he's always been asked to do, which is rush the damn passer.
He had 11 sacks in 14 and 15, so he does have promise.
And he can do it not just from defensive end. When they go to those wide 9 looks, the way the Jags use him, they bumped him down the D tackle. He can rush on, and do stunts and blitzes and whatnot. So he offers some versatility as far as getting to the passer. I mean, that's an easy job for him, and he can do it from inside and outside with decent pass rush moves.
And I think it's a deep unit. I really do. I don't like. Once again, do I want to have like a premier pass rusher behind my starters? Absolutely, but that's a good depth unit. I do think it's one of the stronger units.
Well, on a rotation, they're going to be on a rotation.
Yeah,
that's what Leslie Frazier's known to do with these defensive linemen. I mean, I followed the Vikings a lot. So
with your starting four healthy, that's a strong unit.
Right. So I mean, dude, that's what he's there for. It makes total sense, So throw him in there. All right. Obvious pass down. Give dude a break. Fine. Whatever.
Yep. What about corner, Kev? Are they going to keep 5, 6? What do you think the number is there? And, how is it shaking up right now? Darby, White, Seymour, and Johnson. Do you think Johnson is a shoe-in?
Yeah, I do. I think Johnson's a shoe-in top 4 guy. He's one of those veterans that was brought in to specifically run the McDermott defense. He has the first crack at the nickel job based on preseason and training camp. I think he's a shoe-in top 4 guy. So I think that you have your 4 guys pretty much set with Leonard Johnson stepping in there as that 3rd or 4th guy for sure, even if he gets beat up by Kevon. And not to mention, I've really seen Bradley Sylvie in and out of special teams units and used a lot. And at that undrafted free agent cap number, I definitely could see him sneaking on as the 5th guy. But I do like Sharice Wright. I'm interested. He's played with Leslie Frazier. I'm interested to see what he has in preseason as well. I think they could keep 6. I don't think 5s for sure, especially if they're only going to keep 4 safeties, which is going to be the number. I think that's 6. I think you can keep 10 defensive backs, and you pretty much do every year. If you look back through most teams, you keep at least 10 D-backs. And I think they'll go 6 corner and 4 safeties.
You have to in this league. It's a passing league. You got to keep all the depth you can, especially, guys like Wright that are going to be towards that, middle to back end of making the defensive back, roster. It's one of those. He used to start. I mean, whether he was good or bad, I mean, starting experience.
As a 4th or 5th corner?
Yeah, as a 4th or 5th corner. Yeah. That is something you gotta take into account.
Normally the Bills need to start that guy, and now he's a 4th or 5th guy. We're talking actually even 5th. I mean, we're talking about 4th or 5th defensive backs here.
He had a great pass breakup today, actually, where he had like a nice diving pass breakup. Also on my notes, I believe it was Ronald Darby that did have that pass breakup.
Oh, no way. All right.
But for some reason, I hit number 29, which was Kevon Seymour, which somebody had a pick far sideline from me where it looks like he dropped it right as he was going down. He was pissed, hit the hands on the ground, but it was off Tyrod's hands.
Okay.
And I think it was going towards Zay Jones. So what's nice about that, though, is Zay Jones looks, not to, offshoot this, but Zay Jones looks like really nice.
Yeah, he's another note for he's been playing awesome. But if you stay, and that isn't even us touching on Charles James, who's been on every single special teams unit. He's doing everything the coaches ask. Special teams, they love him. I mean, Crossman loves him. So I think that he makes the decision difficult, especially having some experience like starting for the Texans at times. And I think he has a lot of that playing experience too that you can't do. I think it's another missing maybe another top end guy, once again, just like a couple of positions like linebacker, but I really think it's a deep unit. I don't think you lose much between 4 and 7.
And I think it's one of those units right now that, one of the guys that gets cut is probably going to get picked up
for
somewhere.
Sure. And like Cole Thompson was on our show a couple of weeks ago, basically said I would be shocked if Charles James between special teams isn't like your 5th corner. So they did think highly of him other white places. He has had a raw end of the stick moving on with different coaches and different schemes. But if he finds a niche on special teams, I think he'll get into the games. I think he'll be active on game day. So he's another guy there that's 7 already, and that's not even including Marcus Sales.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's my guy.
So there's going to be a couple of those guys that we're going to try to sneak to the practice squad between him and Sylvie. So absolutely, both might even be on the practice squad if they don't get claimed. And you might keep a guy like James and then practice squad those 2. That would be my prediction.
Yep. Let's see. Go ahead, Dave.
I got a question for you guys. Do you think that Kevon Seymour or any former like draft picks or players that were here before at the cornerback spot minus Darby? I mean, that's not really many.
So it's just 10.
I don't. Not saying he is or isn't showing up, but I'm just saying that like, if he was to fall off, I don't think he's safe because he's a draft pick like at all. I feel like everybody on this team is fair game that was here before to get caught. Every single person. I don't think it's a joke. I think you look at Adam Gase, like an example, like, man, those guys got the message pretty quick when people started getting kicked out the door.
Yeah.
So
they've only kept 30 out of 90 from last year.
Right.
So yeah, I would say
That's
the turnover is
crazy.
33%. Yeah, I in your thinking, if Kevon Seymour does lose a step in the next couple of weeks of practice and preseason games, yeah, he's not a shoo-in, especially with the depth we've talked about. But he's looked great to me. He's looked like a solid number 3 or 4 cornerback. But between him and Leonard Johnson, it's been a great competition.
They've been using him a lot. They've been giving
I
him
think
a
that's
lot
a
of
shoe in
opportunity.
top 4. I don't think nothing to do with draft pick or
Yeah.
the old regime. Nothing of that.
He's
You're
in.
right though. In theory, he could get cut, but those are that's a top.
He's
4
been
unit.
producing. Yeah. He's been putting out at camp from all accounts and from
And that's your top
obviously
4.
you guys being there. So I think he'll be fine. But
Yep.
let's go to a more broader question. All right, the last question here: will McDermott improve Rex era clock management? What do you think?
That's tough to say. That's tough to say on the clock
You can make
management
argument.
end.
Yes, it is. Why though? Offensively, when you got Dennison, all right, we'll start with that. We'll start with Dennison in that offense. First, he's never really called plays, right? In his last couple of years, he was splitting play call duty between Kubiak and who's the other guy they had there? Was it Knapp that they had some kind of system where it was coming up from up top of the stadium and coming in through one coach into another. I don't know if I think you could still have some growing pains in that department. That's just my opinion. What do you think?
I think it's tough to say. Yeah. I mean, the young progressive mind works in his favor to where knowing the game a little better than Rex in terms of like player feelings and where you're at on the field and really thinking about it rationally. So I think you'll see an improvement there, but the growing pains and never doing it and being overwhelmed with your defense and making sure. But the one thing he does have going, like we talked about, is he is delegating. He might have more time for these player responsibilities. He's not in the mix. I actually thought Rex was better last year at clock management. I didn't have – the first year was terrible. Mm-hmm. Last year, I didn't have as many problems. I thought they improved it with some of their workflow things. With putting Rob Ryan there, I don't think they had as many issues, even though the defense sucked in return. But I don't remember quite as many snafus there. So I do think it'll be similar because Rex was actually not terrible last year at that. And I do think that McDermott is a growing mind. I don't think it'll be recognizable. He might make a snafu here and there, but I don't think it'll be recognizable one way or the other. You won't say, wow, that was a really good job, or you won't say that was terrible.
I'll be honest with you. If you're a Bills fan, you're within the Bills organization, a player, media, whatever. I'm going to give Sean McDermott, I give all the coaches year 1, okay? Lay out your foundation, and now I'm going to start digging to that foundation. Example, year 2, started to question Marone. Year 2, definitely started to question Rex. Mm-hmm. I don't think Sean McDermott is going to allow there to even not be a learning curve. You know what I mean? Or allow there to be a learning curve is what I'm saying. He probably has something in place with his OCD brain. And again, as a wrestler myself, and I always talk about it, what it takes to get to that level he was at, you have to be obsessed. Yeah. You have to work harder than everybody else. We're talking about a guy who knocked on the door. Are we the first ones or anybody else in the Twitterverse or Bills fan groups to go, oh, he's never called plays? Well, no shit. Well, I think if anybody deserves to call plays, it's Rick Dennison. Yeah, because we got these quarterbacks where Peterman, to me, I'm not really noticing that he's not a rookie. I'm seeing TJ Yates completing passes in between zone coverage. Like, these guys are in the right spot, right time. I have to go, you know what? I can't wait to see how this plays out. I wish it the best. Tyrod Taylor's not stupid. I would guarantee you that Sean McDermott is going to have that ship rolling real tight, and there's going to be no air left in that dough. And you honestly, as corny as it might sound, you have to trust the process. We got to trust him this year. Let him do it. Don't throw him out of the building, Bills fans. Give him a few years. He's super smart.
Yeah, I'm not worried. Honestly, when it comes down to it, again, he's delegating. He's got experienced coaches around him. He's going to let them do their job. He'll have oversight of everything. And what's more important when you're comparing Rex versus McDermott, Rex's defense was so unique that only really him and his brother could teach it. So he had more input when it came to coaching it on the field, down on the sidelines. So he did lose sight of those other things, which is why last year he kind of delegated some of that other stuff that, to other coaches and whatnot. So I understand the worry, but like Dave said, give it time. And, I think we'll be fine. I think we're in good hands long-term. Wouldn't you agree, guys?
Yep. I think so.
Yeah, I think you just got to trust him.
I think you got to trust him. we're not even through our first preseason game, let alone season. So I think within a couple of games, we might even have more data to pick this discussion back up in 2 or 3 weeks when we've seen 2 or 3 games, even after the third preseason game. We'll have 2 weeks, 3 weeks of camp and stuff to say, okay, he looked good in this facet. He looked like he was delegating. But look, I think it's good to go, and I'm looking forward to this season. I absolutely I think this roster is absolutely better, and we're stepping up from our 7-9 last year.
Definitely.
Well, guys, real quick, Kevin, I think I agree with you 110%. Erik, you pretty much, I'm sure we're all in the same boat here.
Yep.
Pretty much clean up mistakes. The team wasn't too far back.
Yep.
And just get out of your own way. I look at it like playing ping pong. Sometimes you just hit the ball back, they screw it up. I played tennis the other day. I suck. I hit the ball back, and it works out. So it's like, well, lastly, before we sign off with this, just Grandstand Sports Network. Kevin is on the field. I'm on the field. Who else do we got going out there, Erik? And what do you think about like what are you looking forward to with Grandstand Sports Network? Like, what do we got going? A lot of teams involved across the country.
Yeah, I mean, too many to list, honestly, because on a daily basis, right now we have 13 brands, and they're producing anywhere from hockey to football, just general sports stuff. So when it comes to podcasts, we have all of that on our radio station that's playing as we speak right now. So you're gonna have stuff on the site that anyone can enjoy. So go ahead and check it out at Grandstand Sports. All right, and of course, Numb Bills fans are part of that. Cover One, Kevin and I are part of that. So big things are coming. This is just a start. We just kicked off on Monday, so definitely be on the lookout for that.
And don't forget too, Beyond the Blade podcast is brought to you by Chad. Chad gets legit interviews with Eichel. He's a legit dude, and he works really hard, and you should support it if you're a hockey fan. I actually got to play hockey tonight. But, guys, I think that's it here. Where can we find you guys? Real quick, Kevin's at Kevin Massare on Twitter, KEVINISSARE.
It's cover_1_. It's not even Bills anymore. So cover one, because we're not just covering the Bills anymore. We're doing scouting. We're doing a little bit of everything. So, Dave, thanks for having us on your podcast, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you guys.